Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. When my ag agent asked me to do this competition, she said it's just a competition where you talk about yourself, talk about what you do. And my first response was, they only give me 15 minutes to do that. She said, yeah, if you can get it in 15 minutes. But it is hard for something that you're passionate about to get it done in 15 minutes, but we're going to give it a whirl. Like I say, I am Myron Ellis. I'm from Harrisburg. I'm the managing partner in Ellis Family Farm. This is my family. We've got a big family. We are a fifth-generation family farm with the man in the middle there is my nephew. He is the fifth generation. There's a lot of mouths to feed there. We got several of us. My mom and dad and my grandmother are still part of the operation too. We have 870 acres of owned land, 350 acres leased, 1,220 acres total. I'm going to tell you the story today. How alfalfa changed our family farm. That's probably not what we're here to talk about today. We're probably here to talk more about this part here, alfalfa, the queen of forages. If I'd have known what alfalfa was going to have, an effect it was going to have on our operation, though, I might have named this little fellow that, even though his mama might not have agreed to it. But it has had a huge impact on our operation. Like most farmers in Kentucky, we were in a changing agriculture economy. We had been dependent on tobacco like most farmers. We raised 25 to 30 acres a year, and that was our primary source of income. When the buyout came, things were changing. We had to decide what we were going to do. So we went 1 year. We decided we would try under the contract system, and it didn't take us long to figure it out. It wasn't for us. They gave us, act like they were doing me a huge favor, let me raise tobacco for them after I'd raised it myself for all those years. And also, I had basically the same, from the year that we didn't have contract to the year that we went to contract, I had basically the same ground, and I came up $20,000 short on income. So I said, well, it's time to move on. What are we going to do? We were also an evolving family farm at this point. We were primarily corn silage to feed our stocker cattle and our cows that we had. Corn was getting more expensive to raise. Fertilizer was getting higher. We were spending a lot on fuel, putting out a crop every year, going back, harvesting it, blowing it up in silos, blowing it back down to feed cattle with. So we were looking for something else, maybe to do something a little more economical. So we tore our silos down and we moved on. We were already raising about 100 acres of alfalfa. So we decided, let's put this all down in alfalfa, all the corn ground down in alfalfa, and we'll start see what we can do with that. So right here you can see this stand of alfalfa was a 10-year-old stand that we got 2.73 tons per acre off of. One main advantage to this was we didn't have to plant that crop. We fertilize it every year, but you don't have to plant it every year like you do corn. So we knew, though, that we were going to be short on tonnage. Corn silage makes a lot of tonnage, and it's good feed. But we knew we were going to be short on tonnage. We were going to have to pick up the tonnage from somewhere. So we thought if we started wrapping it, making haylage, that would help us in our storing process where we didn't have enough storage room inside to store the hay. We started wrapping our hay and making haylage. We started unrolling our hay in the field and only feeding the cattle what they needed for that day, whether it was half a roll, a whole roll, 2 rolls, whatever that group of cattle needed. We started feeding them that. So that allowed us to take care of our hay better and feed it better to make up some of the difference we were going to lack in the tonnage area. We also still dry rolled a lot of hay. We had some barns to put it in to help with the storage on it so that we didn't lose a lot with the rotting on the outside. We went through a year. We figured out we were doing pretty good. We had kept up with and fed a lot of cattle what we had, but we still needed to increase our production to get up to where corn silage was. So this is when we began to interseed wheat or Marshall ryegrass into our alfalfa fields in the fall and to up our production in the spring. There's one big advantage to alfalfa in your first cutting in Kentucky. That is, you're pretty sure you're not going to have a drought when you come through the winter in Kentucky. You're going to get that good first cutting. So this wasn't too big of a gamble for us to try to up our production in the spring because we were pretty well guaranteed with some good fertilizer we were going to have enough moisture coming out of winter to make a good first cutting of hay. Most cases we found that our tonnage would double from going from 1 year to the interseeding this in. This field, however, it really, for some reason, everything must have hit just right on this field. This field we cut this spring made 9 1,400-pound bales of haylage, 6.3 tons per acre. About this time, too, there was some really, really good pasture land that came for rent close to us. As you can see there, that's pretty good grass for grazing cattle. And this one farm also had 100 acres of alfalfa on it. So we knew what we could do with the alfalfa. This ground was good ground, and we knew we were going to have to compete with the corn growers in our area for rent. So most land in our area was renting for around $15 to $20 an acre for pasture. We sat down, put the pencil to it, figured our stocking rate on the good grass that was available, using our hay, the alfalfa for what we could use it for, and we figured we could give 60 acres, which would be competitive with the corn growers to get this ground. Well, we were awarded the bid, and the people in our town thought we had lost our mind. What's these guys going to do giving $60 an acre to graze cattle? There's no way that can possibly work. But it did work. With the stocking rates we were able to use, it did work. We were able to turn a load of cattle every month off of that 400 acre of hay with hay and grass. It was working fine for us. So now I tell you, we were up to about 300 acres of alfalfa. My nephew put this picture on Facebook. I don't know if you can read the bottom there or not, but it says, "We're back in the saddle again, going round and round." When you got 300 acres of alfalfa, you do find yourself in the tractor a whole lot, going around and around. So now we've got our alfalfa production up now. We're up to about 8 to 9 tons a year, an acre per year. When you're going around and around as many times as we are, you don't find yourself much time. You eat off the bed of the truck. Sometimes you need to take a nap in the tractor when you're on your way. It was also, though, about this time that we found out we've done such a good job. We've increased our production. We've increased it enough. We've got more hay than we need to feed the amount of cattle that we can handle. So that's where this business was born. I was already dabbling a little bit, trying to pick up a little extra money in the Tennessee walking horse business. I came in contact with a man from North Carolina. He said, "You got some extra hay?" He said, "I think I can probably move that hay." I said, "Well, that'll be good." So we started baling a few bales. He started hauling a few bales in his horse trailer back to North Carolina. And next thing you know, he was getting more and more. Next thing you know, I've started my horse trailer, and I'm hauling hay to North Carolina. And business is picking up, keep getting more customers. I keep meeting new people as I go down. And next thing you know, we're up to the hay in North and South Carolina and Florida, all 3 states. We found that this worked well with our program for the cattle too, because when the weatherman promises you 3 days of weather and on the 3rd day you get 1.5 inches of rain, you can roll that hay up if you take care of it, and it's still about as good a hay as what's rolled in our area already, with the quality is if you take care of it good. So now we're up to 500 acres. We've rented a few more acres of land, and we're turning over around 100,000 square bales a year, plus feeding between 1,500 and 1,800 head of feeder cattle a year. So things are going pretty good for us. Tobacco is a distant memory. We have no memory of tobacco at all. It's gone. We don't even think about it anymore. And we're doing way better than we were with tobacco. So as my old buddy Phil here says, we were happy, happy, happy. Until, like all rented land, sometimes it disappears. The elderly man that we were renting some land from passed away. His daughter inherited the land. She decided she didn't want to farm it anymore. She wanted to get rid of it. So it went up for sale. And like I say, it was good land, and it sold high. It was corn ground. This is about the time that the corn market started getting higher, and they were paying a good price for land. So what are we going to do now? We've been turning, like I say, between 1,800 head of cattle a year off this rented land, and our goal is we've got to keep the production the same to meet the needs of the farm, feed that big family I showed you earlier there. We've got to keep the same. So we sat down at the table, pushed our pencils around, tried to figure out what we could do, how we were going to get by. We decided we could build a facility to put 240 head of cattle in for the last 60 days that they were on our farm. We buy them. That would free up enough pasture to keep buying the whole time while these cattle were in there. We thought this just might work, and it has worked. It's worked well for us. We've turned the number of cattle we need to turn. I've got it set up on a rotation now. We're now selling a load of cattle every 3 weeks out of this facility. And that's the outside look of the facility there. We built the facility, now it's time to balance the ration. That's probably not what everybody thinks about when you think about a balanced ration, but these bales do have a lot to do with what we're feeding these animals. So under the watchful eye of Trevor there, we got with the Kentucky Nutrition Bunch. They tested our forages, did what we needed, and gave us what we needed to do. We're feeding these cattle now in this facility here. Cattle are gaining 3 pounds a day for the last 60 days they're at the place, at our farm. Like I say, we are selling a load every 3 weeks. Like everything you put in this end of the cattle, though, it's got to come out the other end. We were a little concerned about what we were going to do with this because it was a lot of manure to do something with. It has proved to be a huge asset to us on our pastures, especially the rockier ground pastures, and building those soils up. We've recently bought another farm that we're grazing that was a little bit, we could buy the land a little cheaper, and we're using this manure to build that farm and build it up to the quality of pasture that we need. This also helps us, the straw that we bed this farm with, also helps us in getting from old stand of alfalfa back to a new stand. We'll go in after the 4th cutting, spray all that alfalfa down that we want to renew, sow it in, no-till it in wheat, take the wheat off about mid-June, wait, see, evaluate the weed pressure. If we need to spray it again, we will spray it again, and we'll sow it again back in alfalfa around the 15th of August. So it's worked out well in 2 ways as far as a crop to get us back to a new stand of alfalfa. Also, at that time we had about 500 acres of alfalfa, so we knew we were going to need a little bit of land, extra alfalfa land. So we started watching around. Right now, at that time, good alfalfa ground was renting for $300 an acre because everybody had gone corn crazy. So we looked around and said there's no reason to pay $300 an acre for rent. Said let's buy a piece of land. So we found a piece of land out on the edge of town, had some development value, and we bought a piece of land. And at this time we were back up to 525 acres. I've now rented another 40 acres of ground, and we're up to 565 acres of alfalfa, and we're back turning 1,500 to 1,800 head of feeder cattle a year. So that brings us to this point. Tobacco was our cash crop. It's not anymore. Alfalfa and grass and forages are my main crop. They are my cash crop now. So I got to thinking, why can't I get any kind of insurance? I went to looking around to see. There was a little bit of insurance, but it was expensive. It didn't pay much. I said, what are we going to do? So I mentioned it to my state representative, and next thing I know, I'm doing something I never thought I'd be doing in a million years, kind of like standing up here giving this speech. I was in Frankfurt, our state capital, addressing the House Ag Committee, telling my story of how alfalfa was a main crop for me. And I needed some help. I couldn't stand to be left behind by the corn growers who were getting subsidized and getting help, and me trying to survive and pay rent and do things to keep up with them. So after I addressed that group, it wasn't too long, my phone went to ringing. People in Washington were calling me, and I'm like, why are these people calling me? Seems like I'd stirred up a little bit of something going on. So I've been in contact with them. I know the American Alfalfa and Forage Alliance has been in contact with them too, and we're still trying to figure out some way to get some kind of insurance, something to help offset the losses from forages, that we get the same losses from forages and as corn producers do. So I urge all of you to talk to your local representative, talk to your federal representatives and senators, and tell them we need some help. We can't farm, we're not on a competitive level with the grain producers with the way that they're subsidized versus the way we're subsidized. So I guess in conclusion, I'd say if you've got a big family to feed like that, you better buy, sell, and feed a lot of these. And you better square bale, and you better sell a whole lot of these things. And if you do, you'll be as happy as the bull being turned out with the cows to pasture. Thank you for your time. I'll take any questions that you've got.